I suppose I should tell you I got my Xbox fixed. This Xbox, this is the one I've always used, and it basically had a tray problem where it wasn't accepting discs. It's working now. The one problem is that the way I have things set up right now, the wire doesn't go down there too easily. I have to figure out a solution, most likely putting the power brick behind there somehow, which is going to be a bitch because I have to put the HDMI cord in and out of the PS2 from the 360 because I'm using this monitor to play the games. And the problem with that is that reaching my hands in behind here and there is really annoying. I mean, I have small hands, so it's okay, but it's still annoying having to sort through all of this stuff just to switch out the HDMI cord, and I can't use the 360 on this monitor, which is better in just about every way because it doesn't have sound, and I don't want to have to go through the complicated process of trying to get sound off of this while also using an HDMI cord, so it's annoying. But I have it set up now at least. What I have to do is take the brick and then put it in that drawer and then run the cord down there. It's a really annoying process. But I've noticed a pattern that has been concurrent through, yeah, pretty much all of my life. I've had this problem. Maybe not so much when I was younger, um, staying up late and stuff, but I've noticed that being awake for long amounts of times makes me really depressed. Is that if I have been sleep deprived for even a little bit longer than I'm supposed to, the sleepiness immediately starts setting in. And clearly, you can see how this becomes an issue with me as someone who deals with frequent insomnia, not being able to get to sleep, mainly due to having to go to school and other stressful factors like that, um, which would naturally make me, um, you know, a victim of this sleepless depression. Now, I look at someone like my friend, no thank you. And when I look at him doing this, I've been awake for 30 hours stuff, sleeping 0 hours a day stuff, I'm caffeinated stuff, I'm modafiniled stuff. It when he does this, when he does this stuff, he seems like the happiest guy. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm making music, man. I'm playing bass, man. I'm playing CS:GO, man. I've been awake for a week." I can't do that. I just can't. I I don't understand. I don't understand how he does it because he's probably more depressed than I am. I don't know how he does it. Does he just get energy from it? Does he get energy from being awake? I don't know. I don't I get less energy from being awake. When I when I've been even like 1 hour over the time that I would normally be getting to sleep, the depression starts setting in, and I go, "Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm the oh, oh, tired star, wild star, tired star." And then I start to lay in bed. I start to lay in bed and try my best, try my damnedest to get to sleep. Can't do it. Can't do it. Hours of trying to get to sleep. And then, of course, that makes the depression worse because I'm just alone with my thoughts. Ooh, don't want to do that. Um, and it's not fun. It's really not. It's not a good state to be in. But when I haven't had sleep, I just get really depressed, and my entire worldview on life like shifts. Where just today I was relatively positive. I felt pretty good. Yesterday I was the same way, relatively positive. Felt pretty good. Um, but when I was deprived from sleep, it's like a crash happened, like an anvil fell down and slammed down, and then the mood was gone, and I feel like shit. Where all those positive vibes of like the year is going to be great and everything's going to be great, Thanos snapped, gone, and then I feel cynical. Um, And it it doesn't really happen other times where I don't get these like radical shifts into depression. Um, Insanely often. Usually, if I'm feeling depressed for a span of weeks or months, I'm just depressed. That's just where I'm at. Or if I'm not and I'm just feeling completely neutral, which those are pretty much the two states of being. It's being neutral enough to get some good experiences or being so depressed that nothing feels good, except for like playing a video game or something. Um, then, 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 what I end up doing um, is the sleep having made it worse. But when I'm in those neutral states, it's so fragile. It's so fragile at times that the depression can assert itself through, like, obviously me not getting enough sleep or through just something bad happening. And it doesn't set in nearly as negatively as it would in a depressed state, but it does be there. And I just sort of stoically try to brush it off, like I suppress the feeling and then I try not to let it bother me. Um, or I make a video and the video leads me to feel better afterwards and I forget about it. But when I'm in a positive state, most things can't touch me. When I'm feeling relatively good, like, oh, today's gonna be good, everything's fine, I'm feeling relatively good. Most things don't really bother me that much, unless I'm like hallucinating. If I'm hallucinating, it completely changes the dynamic. If I start hallucinating bad stuff, I start to get pretty upset. But the more negative things that I'm told, I tend to not get as upset as I used to, where I'm kind of used to hearing it. But if the people assert themselves loudly enough and if they say the right things, then it can get under my skin to the extent that it does ruin the day, and that doesn't feel good. Or if I see something that's particularly scary, I start to feel weary and paranoid of everything. Of course, that's a different emotion, feeling weary and paranoid of everything. Um, that happens to me pretty often, is that I spend a lot of days, trying to avoid windows, not looking out windows, because I don't want to feel like I don't want to feel like looking out the window is going to lead me to seeing something. Going to lead me to seeing something that's dangerous. Or going out the door, going outside. I I film the videos with me going outside and there's cars and stuff. But even in those videos, I feel pretty paranoid of being ran over or of someone in the car, um, or of just the stimulation from the cars in general will just bother me. That's why in the outside videos where the cars are around, I have big gaps of silence sometimes, or I take the camera and I point it to the ground and I stop saying anything, or I just start rambling to myself in a kind of incoherent way that doesn't make sense, doing a lot of ums and stuff. That's because I'm starting to get really worried being outside. But I try to hide it in those videos in order to keep up the performance. I wouldn't call myself anxious per se. Like, it's not an anxiety, it's a paranoia. That's the distinction I make between those two things, is that it's not anxiety, it's paranoia. I get paranoid. I get paranoid of stuff. And I always try to say, "Oh, if it's not real, then why would you be upset about something you have no control over?" Oh, and saying that helps to an extent. You could say, "Oh, if you have no control over it, why feel bad about it?" You can continue repeating that mantra, and it helps depending on the situation. But when you're outside and you get the stimulation of cars just bothering you and going at you, you can't help but feel like something bad is going to happen. When you're walking around your home enough days and you look around at the windows, you can't help but feel that something bad is going to happen. When you're walking outside, you can't help but feel someone is always following you. Even though you know logically to discern that no one is following you, you feel that way. And I get these little things that trigger me into an onset of negative emotions that just happen. And I look at something like my sleep, and I'll be in a totally positive mood. Oh, everything's fine. I'm playing the video game. Everything's good. And then it's not, because I'm tired and I'm trying to get to bed. Even now, I have to record a video just to deal with the fact that I'm tired and trying to get to bed. I've been getting in a few more, I guess, political arguments recently, philosophical arguments, you could say. And I don't usually do that. I don't usually get into these arguments because, back when I used to do those more regularly, my heart rate started getting really, really bad. And it wasn't even because of the difference I may have had with the ideas. I've seen those ideas a million times. They're fine. They're okay. When people get into arguments, they get fired up and they start getting a little bit mean because they care about their position. I care about my position to an extent, depending on the subject. Most things I'm pretty agnostic about. There's certain core principles I keep, but most things I'm pretty agnostic about. I'm always open to be proven wrong. I'm an open book. People get worked up in arguments. They get upset. And this happens a lot. Like, it's not an isolated occurrence. It happens a lot. And people will say things that they're your friends. They'll say things that just get under your skin and really bother you. And it happens a lot. But, I've started to notice my heart rate go back up more recently. And sometimes I'm just generally worried for no reason, like, oh, what's going to happen next? Or I get a memory. Oh, this one's fun. I get a memory. I remember something in the past, something embarrassing I've said, or I remember something negative that's happened. And my heart starts going fast. Not fun. But I've been getting into these arguments and I've been noticing that my heart's been going fast again. And it's really, really been worrying me. Because the arguments haven't been nearly as frequent as they used to be before, when I was just, beating out of my chest constantly. But they have been happening. And I like amicable discussions, like just discussions about ideas where the two sides are equal. Amicable discussions. Two sides are equal. And they're just exchanging the ideas that they're talking about. I like that. I'm okay with that. And I enjoy doing that, even if I disagree a lot with the person. But when it starts getting into the hyper specifics and the nitty gritty of things, and I start to feel threatened by the other person, like the other person is going to pull one over me, or they're about to insult me, or they're gonna assert something against me, and get mad in some way or something. My heart starts to go fast again, and I start to I don't know. It's like most criticism I'm not so much bothered by. Most criticism is totally fine. Most of it's totally fine. Um, be it positive or negative, it's like it washes over me like the waves. But when you have friends or someone who you feel is at a higher level than you, and you're arguing with them and they pull out, a really insulting tone, or they're just loud, they could have communicated the same thing to you and it would have meant the same thing. Like, you can get the same meaning from it and you can still learn something. The intensity of someone's tone doesn't really make me learn anything new. I always take in the information with just about the same radius of logical understanding. So the intensity of someone's tone doesn't change its meaning for me. It just makes me upset. if someone makes a logically coherent point, I'll agree with that point and then I'll move on. Um, be it criticism or whatever. But when they start getting intense and mean, I think they're trying to do that to be convincing, or they're just upset. And all that does is just raise my heart rate and make me really upset. And I start to get worried that, the person's going to unfriend me or I mean, that's okay. But I start to get worried. It feels like I'm going to get hurt. That's the thing. It's like physically. That's what you got to understand is that it feels like you're about to get physically hurt, is what I would describe. Um, and I don't know. But my heart rate has been going faster lately, sometimes randomly, but usually due to one of those contexts. And it's been really bothering me. Maybe that's the reason I can't get to sleep. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. Bert, come here. Shh, Bert. There's a reason I always lock my door. Lately, my dad has been telling me, he's been telling me not to lock my door. But there's a reason I always lock my door. I heard a sound outside. I heard a sound. I heard a sound of something knocking around outside, and immediately I got worried. But it wasn't. That's the distinction I'm making, is that it's not an anxiety. It's not a worry that, oh, I'm going to be killed. That's a bad thing to die. Oh, something's going to kill me. It's a feeling that an event that's bad is about to occur. It's about to happen. And you get the little movements of your body, your heart rate goes up, and you feel adrenaline that something is about to happen. Not that you're worried that you're going to die, but that something is about to happen. And there's a reason I always lock my door. There's a reason I always lock my door. Because I will feel most of the time like something is about to happen. But I'm not allowed to lock my door anymore. And now my dog was just barking. And I still can't sleep since that last clip.